Hi, this is Kim Droptiny. I'm reading Beyond the Echo Cavern by BreAnna Teschendorf, and I'm on Chapter 11, The Vision. "We have to go now," said Sephora, giving a little wave as she slipped off her leaf. The others smiled and nodded and quietly slid off their leaves to follow her. The sun had begun to set while they were talking, and the sky all around them was shining lovely dusky purple. The air was indeed getting warmer as it got darker, and there was a magical feeling of electricity, like the air feels right before a thunderstorm. "They must prepare for tonight's music," Rivers informed Charlie, Annika, and Gabe. "Most nights someone is making music for Hoan back in the Echo Cavern. We would be very honored for you to join us." His voice trailed off. He smiled rather suddenly and attempted a joke. "This time you won't have to run when you hear the drums." They all laughed except Charlie, who looked concerned. "Will we get to meet Hoan? I want to ask him why he opened the cave and then trapped us here," he explained. Maybe you will meet him," Rivers said slowly. "Hoan is unpredictable. He loves our music. He almost always comes to hear the music." "Do you think he will send us right back to our world?" asked Charlie anxiously, hoping for more time to find the treasure his heart was longing for. "I don't know, honestly." River's serious eyes held Charlie's intently. "But I do know Hoan pretty well, and he isn't the kind to do things without reason. If he opened the cave for you, then he must want you here for a reason. Why would he send you right back?" "Do you think he will like us?" Gabe asked anxiously. He felt strange in the new world and wasn't sure that he wanted to meet this Hoan. "Of course," Rivers said, now breaking into a smile. "Now, do you want to come and hear our music, or are you feeling too sleepy?" "Oh, I want to come," said Annika. She was still full of questions and wanted to experience everything. "Then come on," said Rivers, as he jumped off his leaf and headed back towards the entrance of the cave. Annika jumped down to follow him, with Gabe and Charlie lingering a little bit behind. Neither of them were sure they wanted to go, and they were both excited about sleeping on the feather grass in the field. Nevertheless, they followed Annika and Rivers towards the cave. Just before the entrance, Rivers stopped by the side of the water and said, "Would you like to wash up a bit before going in? You have had quite an adventure today." Annika looked at the boys, who were looking very dirty, and it hit her with horror that she must look equally dirty. "Yes, I want to wash my face," she said, and she walked towards the edge of the water. The boys shrugged and decided to do the same. They all knelt by the water's edge. Warm steam that smelled like jasmine rose off the water's surface. Warm steam that smelled like jasmine rose off the water's surface. They plunged their hands into the water and splashed their faces. It was warm like a bathtub and full of little club soda bubbles. It felt invigorating. Afterward, their skin was soft as if they had put lotion on. The children felt refreshed and even a little bit happy. "Hey, can I put my feet in too?" asked Annika. "Sure," said Rivers, smiling. "I will put mine in too." They all took their shoes off and plunged their feet in the water. The bubbles felt like little tickles all over their toes. They splashed their feet, and when they did, the churning water changed colors, looking like a messy color wheel. "Oh, my word!" Annika exclaimed. "More bioluminescence," breathed Charlie in amazement. Then they were all quiet. They could hear the drums starting inside the cave. "Let's go," said Rivers. He jumped up and dried his feet on the grass. He wasn't wearing any shoes. The kids did the same, but put their shoes back on. They entered the cave and wound their way back down the passage lit by the glowworms. The music sounds got louder and louder. They could also hear some singing and the sound of the harp strings humming on the ceiling at the other end of the cave. The air felt strangely inviting. It was good that they entered the room after the music had started. There was something special about the children's heartfelt singing, drumming, instrument playing, and dancing. Furthermore, to their surprise, some children were painting. They were painting on all the walls, here and there, sometimes just splashes of color, and sometimes real images. Still other children were working with what looked like clay. All the children were glowing very impressively now, brighter than they had before. Upon entering the bustling room, Annika, Charlie, and Gabe each had a different impression. Charlie felt it was like coming in from the cold of a bitter winter day to a toasty living room where a roaring fire had been lit. Annika felt that it was like sitting down in a squishy couch that lets you just snuggle into it after you've been walking all day and have very sore feet and legs. Gabe likened it to a long drink of icy cold water when you just had a salty meal and nothing to drink. Sometimes you have to gasp for air after you've had a long drink, and Gabe felt that he needed to gasp for air after taking in all of the excitement. Gabe found a drum and looked shyly at Rivers, who smiled and nodded. Gabe began to pound on it enthusiastically and laugh. He had pretty good rhythm. Aunt Persephone should get him drum lessons when we get home, thought Annika. She wanted to dance. She saw girls dancing with the most beautiful flowers she had ever seen. They were as large as her face, and just like Rivers had said, they were glowing. When the girls danced and spun with them in the dark corners of the cave, they flashed on the walls in a mystical fashion. Annika made eye contact with Rivers and pointed towards the baskets of flowers with her eyebrows raised in a question. Rivers smiled and nodded. She ran over and picked out a flower that was a golden orange with brilliant streaks of red. Back home, she would have wanted to press the flower to save it, but now the thought never entered her mind. She was pleased to join in the dancing for Ho'an, glad to say thank you for the flower itself, for the beautiful cleansing water and the soft field, even if it did seem weird to dance for someone of whom she was still uncertain. She was certain she had been warmly welcomed into Mayan, and that was enough at the moment. Charlie liked the feeling he had in the room, a feeling like he could rest. He couldn't help but feel that the other children were a little silly. He didn't want to dance or sing for any reason, and he couldn't play an instrument. He decided to go sit on one of the chairs in a dark corner and just close his eyes to relax a little. He truly was tired. No sooner had he closed his eyes, it happened. He had a vision or a dream. He couldn't be sure which. He knew in some way that he was still aware of sitting in a chair. He could still hear the drums from a distance, as if he was far away. He could only see like in a fog, but he could make out something that excited him. He was sure that it was the treasure he was hoping to find. 3 large white gems, gems so big that he wondered if he could even carry them out. His mind raced with different possibilities. He looked around him for a rock to break up the crystals with. It was then that he realized that he was not alone. Something in the stone was moving. Charlie moved a few steps closer to look, but he still couldn't quite make out what could be inside. He edged step by step, closer and closer to the crystal, until he was close enough to press his forehead up against it to look inside. To his surprise, the crystal looked much bigger on the inside than it could possibly be from the outside. And to his horror, there were children trapped inside of it. Charlie was moved by the looks of sadness and despair on their little faces. There were very small toddlers, sitting alone and crying aloud, long wailing cries with tear-stained faces. Some sat still, silent. Still, others lay with their eyes closed, small and white, looking like corpses. Other older children were standing near the crystal walls, pounding and yelling. Charlie could tell to his despair that they couldn't see him. He couldn't even give them a glimpse of hope that help might have arrived and that they had been seen. Charlie's heart started to pound, and the blood rose into his face. It is a difficult thing to see other people in danger or hurting. He raised his hand to pound on the crystal, and his mind raced again about the possibility of breaking it, but this time to help, not just for himself. Then he froze. Another eye, also outside the crystal, met his own from the other side. The eye was ice cold and green like a glacial river. With growing dread, Charlie realized that he was not alone in the room and jumped back to look at the owner of the other eye. At that moment, Charlie's eyes flew open, and he found himself sitting in the odd chair in the dark corner with the music whirling around him and the drums pulsing in his chest. He still felt the fear of that eye looking at him. It could still perfectly envision the sad, despondent faces of the trapped children and the luscious, large crystal. The crystal was probably worth a fortune, maybe even more than diamonds. He couldn't be sure how much. Nothing around him had changed, but Charlie knew that he would never be the same again. He was seized with both conviction and a feeling of importance. To his surprise, he heard himself mumble, "Hoan, help me find them." After the words left Charlie's mouth, he leaned back into the chair, closed his eyes again, and this time fell into a delicious, dreamless sleep. "Charlie! Hey, chirpy Charlie! Wake up!" Charlie heard Gabe's voice from a distance calling him. He opened his eyes to find Gabe standing over him, dimples showing. Gabe reached out and pinched Charlie's cheek affectionately. Gabe was a famous cheek pincher. "You were really asleep," said Annika. "Was Hoan here?" asked Charlie, jumping from the chair, surprised to find that the music was over and most of the children were gone. "Yeah, he was here," said Rivers. "Did you talk to him?" he asked Annika. "No, I was dancing." "I need to see him," said Charlie, taking a step toward Rivers. "Right now." I don't think you can, Charlie," explained Rivers. "Hoan cannot be summoned. It is too late to go to his palace tonight. What is so urgent? What happened?" "I had a dream, or it wasn't a dream, a vision. I don't know. I saw something important." "Okay," said Rivers in a slow, serious voice, not sounding at all surprised by Charlie's outburst. "What did you see?" Charlie told him about the gorgeous crystal and the poor children trapped inside of it, and about the horrible person or thing looking at him with an evil eye. River's eyes got wider and wider as Charlie spoke about it. Annika, who was fairly good at reading people, kept looking back and forth from Rivers to Charlie. She could tell that Charlie was telling the truth because she could tell that Rivers was surprised and agitated by what he heard. When Charlie finished talking, all four were silent. Gabe, who hadn't been paying attention, said, "Sounds like you had a weird dream, Charlie. Come on, let's hurry back to the field so we can sleep in the feather grass. Race you back, slowpokes." He would have taken off running, but as he spoke, he noticed that everyone else was looking very sober. "You saw her," said Rivers gravely, "and them." "Do they really exist?" asked Charlie, even though he already knew the answer. "They do," said Rivers seriously. "They are somewhere in the darkness of the cave." "What is her name?" asked Charlie, knowing the her was the owner of the eye he had seen. Rivers answered him, "Her name is Gondole." And that's the end of chapter 11. And I thank you for listening, and I hope to see you or know that you are there for chapter 12. God bless you.